What is a one in a million thing that happened to you that will never happen again? One time I pointed at the sky one night and told my little brother, "Watch this," and AF asterisk asterisk king shooting star came and went. Dude, when I was young, me and my good friend were looking and were talking about shooting stars and saw one right away. It was wild. I took a job in a somewhat remote area of northeast China about 20 years ago. I had two roommates, one American and one Canadian, and we were part of just a handful of foreigners out of about 2 million Chinese in that area. Fast forward 10 years and I'm back in the USA. I was dating a girl who was going on a girls' trip to Mexico. She and her girlfriends went out to a bar and got to talking with another group of people. One of the guys there started showing photos from his travels, and lo and behold, there I am. He was my roommate from China a decade before, and while chatting with these girls decided to share the pictures of his travels. After a few of those "prove that you know him" questions, they both flipped out. Small world. I stuck my hand out the window to feel if it was still raining and a bird shat right on it. Never doing that again. That bird was talking to his friends later that night like, so I let one loose while flying, and when I looked down, it landed on some random hand stuck out a window. What are the odds? Definitely doing that again. I was playing beer pong years ago. Definitely past my limit on drinks. This really pretty girl shows up to the party and asks how to play beer pong. I start explaining the rules, and when I got to trick shot, she asked what they were. Never breaking eye contact, I threw my ball up, which hit the ceiling fan blades, which were going at full speed, and went straight into a cup. After laughing for 10 minutes, we all tried to recreate the hole in one. Never even slightly close. Back in 1989, I was living in Las Vegas, and a female friend that I desperately wanted to date and impress asked me to teach her how to shoot. So we go down to the gun store, rent a .38 special 6-shot, 4-inch revolver. We get a target and a box of wadcutters. I send the target all the way down to the 50-foot mark and start explaining how the gun works. I load a single round in, and am showing her the difference between single and double action. I cock the hammer back, and aim downrange, while looking her directly in the face. She's perpendicular to the axis of my arm. I explain how there's much less trigger pull when firing single action, and I pull the trigger. The gun goes off, and I continued to explain why it's a bad idea to ever use single action despite what she might see in a movie. She wants to know where the bullet went. She hits the target return. My hand to God, it was a bullseye. Dead center. Maybe 1 centimeter up and to the left from a perfect X. Needless to say, it was a total fluke, and I could never, ever do it again. I mean, I'm a good shot, but not like that, and certainly not almost 30 years later. My eyes are old. Still, I had her undivided attention for the rest of the day. Sadly, that didn't impress her as much as I'd hoped it would when I realized where I'd hit it. I ran into Bill Murray at the Dallas Art Museum on a school trip, and he gave me wrong directions to the Asia exhibit. This sounds like the best possible answer he could have given to me. Once upon a time, my brother and I were arriving late at night to a little cabin in the woods. It was winter, it was pitch black outside, and it was freezing. We needed to get a fire lit ASAP, but the firewood was stacked outside the back of the cabin, under the porch. Now, my brother and I used to watch a lot of horror movies together, and again, it was the middle of the night, at a cabin in the woods, it was winter, and it was fucking freezing and pitch black outside. We decided to flip a nickel to see who would venture out to get the firewood. And here's the part that answers the question: the nickel landed on its side. Nobody went under the porch that night. I don't know the actual stats, but I won one of those gold PS4 sets back when Taco Bell was doing their sweepstakes. I won a PS4 from a sketchy video game history quiz, and they shipped it all the way from India. I have no idea what company even sent it, only that to this day the PS4 still holds up, and it's been like 4 years of near constant use. Was smoking outside a hotel in a place a few cities over from me. Homeless man comes and asks me if I can buy him some food. Got to talking over some cheesy chips. Homeless guy was my estranged cousin. I met my wife for Chinese food at a time when we were living separate, and she had already served me papers for divorce. We both opened our fortune cookies. Mine said, "You have a lot to offer to the right person." Hers said, "Give him another chance." I saw the first hint of consideration in her eyes. We ended up not divorcing and am happy 12 years later. Dang, how much did you pay them to do that? Probably less than a divorce lawyer. I was cutting vegetables in my kitchen and a fly was buzzing around my head, so I swung around with the knife in my hand and sliced the fly clean in half. It could happen again if only you study the blade. Any recommendations where I can learn the blade? Go to your local mall and find the man with patchy stubble and a fedora. He will teach you the way of the blade if you describe to him what holding hands with a girl is like. You will know he is near when you smell a mix of sweat, cheap deodorant and flaming hot Cheetos. I was doing a hike in Maui, and at the top of the hike was a large waterfall on a sheer cliff face. The moment I got to the waterfall, I heard this earth-shaking rumbling. I could feel the sound, kind of like heavy bass through speakers. When I looked up at the waterfall, a couple of huge rocks were falling down. If I had been a minute faster on the hike, I would have been right below those rocks as they were falling. Terrifying but also breathtaking to see the power of nature. I was in Vegas, playing roulette. Being somewhat drunk, and a bit of a goof, I was saying I was psychic, and that the next number was going to be 17. It hit. There was some groaning, but I'm an amiable guy, so it was good-humored. I then predicted that it was going to be 17 again, my psychic vision said so. Hit again. Ha ha, it was hilarious. Third spin? Yeah, 17 again, boys, my vision was clear. Hit again. The whole table was silent, you could hear a pin drop. I'm thinking that was a one-off type of thing, though the odds aren't quite 1 in a million. Ran into Passenger doing a street performance in Adelaide promoting his new album in 2015. 2 weeks later I ran into him again doing another street performance in Sydney. I did not know of either of these performances before just stumbling upon them. Passenger is a really cool guy. I met him around 2009 busking in Edinburgh at the top of the mile. Bought a CD, had a chat. This was before he was famous, but I'm willing to bet he's still a chill person. Before Google, I am old, deal with it. When I was in college, I was trying for about 12 hours one day to remember the name of the instrument you use to take your blood pressure, sphygmomanometer. I was obsessing about still when I went to pick up beer for a party that night. The store didn't have the beer I wanted, so I grabbed some random seasonal mix pack. Helped myself to one when I arrived at the party and opened the bottle only to find that the bottle caps had riddles and trivia on them and mine said "pressure's on" the top and "sphygmomanometer" on the inside. I was struck by lightning. 22nd story of John Hancock Tower in Boston, the big glass one, through a conference room window. The storm was very pretty, but I don't go near windows during storms anymore. That is crazy. One time a storm rolled through and I went outside to bring toys and bikes in and all that. I was watching lightning hit so close I could hear it, and one hit across the street from me, and I said to myself, we are about to get struck by lightning, and we did. It hit our metal roof and shot out all of the screws on one panel, and the wind took the rest of that part of the roof off. It was pouring rain, so no fire, but it definitely rained inside our house. Lightning is scary. I had no idea that you could get struck by lightning through a window. That is a hard lesson to learn. I was about to fall off the staircase at our flat, but my reflexes kicked in and I was able to do a handspring and flip forward to land on my feet. It won't happen again, and I sure hope I don't come close to falling like that. Once as a kid I was running down a steep hill, tripped, did a full flip and landed on my feet still in mid-stride without even slowing or losing my rhythm. It was so fast and smooth I still question if it even happens sometimes. Not quite 1 in a million, won a car in a newspaper competition, picked out of 82,000 entries though smiley face. I bumped into my teacher on Thunder Mountain in Disney World. We're from Boston. I ran into a teacher from my high school on the street when I was in Singapore for a day layover on the way to India. We're from Canada. I had 2 houses burn completely down 2 years apart from each other. I hope to God the odds are now in my favor. I hope you have good home insurance, although they're probably highly suspicious of you now. When I was looking to adopt a cat from the dozens available at the animal shelter, there was one very special one way up high near the ceiling, perched on a stack of boxes, looking down right into my eyes. When I said, "Would you like a loving home?" he let out an enthusiastic MROW, and worked his way down through all the other cats and started arching his back against my leg. The attendant said that in all her years at the shelter, she'd never seen anything like it. And I sincerely doubt it's ever happened since. The power went out in my house, so I walked into the living room and said to my family, "Why are you sitting in the dark?" knowing there was no power. As I said it, I flipped the light switch just as the power came back on. Was at Dave and Buster's for a friend's wedding reception probably 10 or so years ago. I wanted to play skee-ball. I'm not really good or anything, just liked playing and their machines were in really nice shape. Get $5 in tokens, and the very first game I got a bunch of 100s and ended up beating the score to win the jackpot. I had like 860 points or something. Flashing lights, siren going off, everyone looking at me. It takes about 5 minutes for all the tickets to spit out of the machine. It was a giant pile on the floor. Meanwhile, I just wanted to play some skee-ball. It finishes and the teenager minding the counter climbs up to the top and resets the jackpot counter. I put in another token and wham. Did it again. Bunch of 100s. Another jackpot, much less this time. The kid working gives me this look like I cheated. "You can't play anymore." I gave all the tickets to my friend's daughter and she went on a shopping spree. As many rubber balls and plastic trinkets to last her a lifetime. I cut a fly in half while it was flying with a set of scissors. I do have witnesses. I was more surprised than anyone. It's dangerous to have flies flying around with scissors, you should always try to take the scissors off them. I went to college in a major city with public transit. My city also has a big homeless, mental health issue. As the trains are relatively cheap and many run 24/7, unfortunately, the mentally ill tend to use it as shelter. I was riding to work early one morning when a young, obviously homeless, man approached me. I thought he was going to ask for money. Instead, once he stopped in front of me, he reached down and hugged me. I was 19 years old at the time. It was gross. He wouldn't let go. I promptly clonked him over the head with my water bottle. Eventually he let go and walked away. I thought about calling the police, but they never come in this city. 5 years later, I was taking the train again. A man approached me, and something about the situation felt familiar. I looked up, and sure enough, it was the aggressive hugging man. I recognized him right away. "We've been through this before," I said. "Do not hug me." The aggressive hugging man got the memo, and left me alone, but then began approaching other women on the train, trying to hug them. I had enough, and decided to report it to the police. They didn't come, as expected, so I stopped by the station. The detective I spoke to showed me some pictures. Apparently this man had randomly grabbed, hugged 75 other women back when I first encountered him in a period of a few weeks, most of who were underage. He spent some time in jail, but was apparently back at it. The next time I saw him I gave him my friend's business card, who is a social worker, and this dude now has housing, a part-time job, and I don't think he's going around hugging random women anymore. My guess is he wanted to go to jail for housing and food but didn't want to cause any harm. So he just hugged people until he was thrown in jail. That's probably what it was. That is so sad and also sweet at the same time. It makes me want to cry.